podcast can be what brings you the most happiness, but you have to be vigilant. Before I begin, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I always thought that getting alerts was weird, but maybe they would help. I don't even know what hype does, but probably something good for me. They told me that these stories are there to help broken people feel like they can make it day by day. So subscribing would help get the message out. I'm Joe. I'm not sure you'd want to shake my hand right now. My hands are dirty, they're calloused, but my fiancée, Cassie, never shrinks from my hands, no matter what shape they're in. But I'm 34, and working on the electrical crew was all I had ever known. I met Cassie at a networking event. Everyone was passing out cards, trading social media. I had no idea why I was there. Actually, I did. I'm actually a line worker, putting up electrical wires and repairing them when they broke. I had an electrician buddy, Brad, someone who called me his partner, which really meant that when he needed my specialty high-voltage knowledge, he'd call me in. I'd install 240-volt wiring and plugs, and he'd pay me for that part of the job. He paid well. It was as much as my full week of work. When he'd call me for 2 jobs in a week, it was like I made all the money in the world. He would hand me cards and tell people that I was a high-capacity installer. Some businesses like that. They'd take a card, promise to call or email, and then we'd move on. But there was that one woman networking, talking about her independent marketing and web business. She seemed a little lost, so I asked her to get a drink. She smiled, like it meant everything in the world. She said she had been on her own for a while. We talked about business and she gave me her card. But soon things got personal. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Maybe it's because she seems so sad. Maybe it's because things took so many turns. All I know is that I have this microphone and a record button, and I just hope sharing this helps someone out there. Cassie told me that she had been seeing guy after guy. All were creative types, artists, musicians, even a photographer, but all of them seemed to use her. And when she realized they took and took, she'd turn to her friend Max. Max would comfort her, help her through her time of need, and be there for her. For 5 years, he was her best friend. Sometimes she wondered if he wanted more, but he never said anything. One day at dinner with friends, he had just gotten a promotion, and just when he thought that they were going to figure things out, she had turned around and called him the boring corporate type. That broke him. That's when he knew she would never see him as anything more than the boring friend. She looked at me. "You're doing electric work. Why don't you tell me about that?" For a half hour, I'd tell her about working on the lines, how the electricity would spark and crackle, how one wrong move would send thousands of volts of energy through your body, and how every moment was danger. Her eyes grew wide. She seemed genuinely interested. I paid for our drinks and asked if I could see her again. She nodded and smiled. We exchanged numbers, and that felt nice. The next day, Brad called me in for an install. It was my third install that week. I was short on time, but I made it work. When I got done with maybe 10 minutes before I had to run to my line job, I felt the card, Cassie's card, in my pocket. Not sure what I was talking about, I handed him the card and asked him if we had a website or something. He looked at me blankly. "No, I've always gone by word of mouth." Kind of bluffing. I fumbled for words. "Why don't you call this Cassie girl? Maybe she can drum up some business." He looked at the card, shrugged, and said, "Okay, Joe, we're partners. If you think I should call, I'll call." After work, Cassie called me. "I got a call from your partner, Brad. He told me that you thought I should handle your website marketing." I was able to get him on a 60-day trial run. I could hear the pleasure in her voice. "I promise that I'll make your business successful. You won't regret it." My business? This was Brad's thing. He just called me his partner. But before I could say anything, she said, "Because you made this possible, I want to celebrate. Let's go out to dinner tonight, my treat." "Where would you like to go?" I'm a simple man. I don't know much about fancy restaurants. All I know is that I like tasty food, so I asked if Olive Garden was okay. All I heard on the phone was a charmed laugh. "Okay, Joe, Olive Garden. We'll have breadsticks together." I picked her up at her apartment, which seemed kind of small for a woman like her. I could tell from the wiring I'd done that it must have been a one-bedroom. It didn't bother me. I have a small two-bedroom. I texted her, and she responded that it's polite for a man to knock on the door. That seemed strange, but I climbed out of my F-350, walked right up to her apartment, and knocked. She smiled when she opened the door. She held her hand out to me like she expected it. It seemed strange, but I wasn't going to turn it down. When she realized the size of my truck, she was even more pleased. "Joe, this is a great truck you have." I blushed. "It's just a crew cab. I use it to haul tools and sometimes cords and stuff." She had this huge smile on her face. "Can I climb in, Joe?" I nodded. It took a couple of tries, but she lifted herself into the passenger's seat, and when I climbed into the cockpit, she leaned over and touched my hand. You know, Brad told me that he did the basic electric work and how you do the really heavy stuff. I think you make a great team. I suggested that we talk branding on the phone. He said that his card always just said Brad's Electrics. But I told him it needed both names, Brad and Joe's. She opened up a picture on her phone. There was a cartoon, one guy holding a screwdriver and another a live wire with sparks. I sent him the concept and he loved it. She gushed. I'm going to have a website set up and that image is going to be the centerpiece of the page. Brad and Joe's, I said quietly. He always called me his partner, but I don't know. He just called me in to do jobs, and I did them. I didn't take it too seriously. It was then that the touch turned into a grip. Joe, Brad's a good guy, he really means it. You're his partner. You're the one who got this whole branding and web marketing ball rolling. I did? I asked, confused. I don't remember doing that. Joe, you gave Brad my card. He told me you suggested the marketing idea. He takes you seriously. He told me he never thought of anything but word of mouth. But when you said call, he called. She leaned in a bit. You're a genius, and I bet you didn't even know it. She said that last part softly, and it made me feel warm. But a moment later, she said off to Olive Garden. After stuffing ourselves with breadsticks and pasta, we went for a walk. I told you about Max. I sometimes wish I had allowed myself to see what he wanted in me. She looked up at me. In some ways, you're just like him, you know? It was then that something inside me clicked. She was holding my arm. She was comparing me to the man she regretted losing. I looked down at her hand, then at her. She kept her smile. Joe, you're such a great guy. Do you think a woman who screwed up can fix herself? I looked at her, thought, and then said, I guess so. If you're asking me to be what his name, Max, might have been, I guess I should consider myself a lucky man. The next week was a whirlwind. Work on the lines never felt easier. I've spent my whole adult life installing and repairing wires. But seeing and talking to Cassie made every day feel like a breeze. For a month, twice a week, I'd pick her up. We'd go out, and with having to do an install almost every day, I ended up with more and more money. Each week, I got busier and busier. For about a week, Cassie made things easier. She would bring lunch to my work site, and we'd quickly eat together. At first, it felt weird, but then I found myself looking forward to it. Sometimes, she would ask me to text her when I got done and where. When I did, she'd have a coffee shop picked out, and we'd meet. One day, when Brad came in and told me we had to go over business contracts, Cassie said she'd come and make sure everything was square. She sat by my side, looked at the contracts, and seemed satisfied. She asked me to take her to Applebee's that night. She could have asked to go to some fancy restaurant downtown that cost $500 for a plate, and I would have done it. But we ate Bourbon Street steak and French fries, and it felt like the best day of my life. Then my life got even busier. Every day there was an install. I was getting up at 5 a.m. one day, staying out until 10 another. On my day off from the lines, I installed high voltage in 3 houses. I was exhausted. I never even looked at my phone that night. I barely plugged it in. I didn't even eat. I just slept. On Saturday, Brad pulled me aside. I think it's time that we take some cash from the business. I want to put a down payment on a house. So we'll call it a dividend and take 1% of the company revenue from the bank each. I stared at him. 1%, eh? Don't sound like much, but I guess I can use it to make a couple of payments on my truck. I thought. How much are we looking at? Brad was looking at me strangely. Do you have no idea how much our business is worth? I stared at him blankly. I didn't know much about paperwork other than the municipal documents I had to have turned in at the end of the day. I knew how to install the proper wiring for a 240-volt outlet. I could install a solar array. I just let Brad run the contracts and the sourcing from his office at home. Joe, our company hit $1 million, he said. 1 million, I wondered. I started putting the pieces together. And you're saying I have? Half that? All those installations, the solar panels, the Tesla chargers, they could be thousands of dollars apiece. We were supplying and I was installing a lot. Of course, we're in this together. All of our best jobs are because you can install electric vehicle chargers and solar power connections. I thought hard for a minute, but we seem like such a small company. It's just us two, Brad laughed. Yeah, I know, and I've been doing the paperwork and ordering all the equipment, but you're the skilled talent. He paused. I've been thinking about bringing in a third guy, just as an employee. My world changed. Brad had called me his partner and I showed up. I fit the jobs in that he needed, and he never forgot it. Now on paper I was worth $500,000. It seemed like an impossibility. But if Brad said it, it was true. So are we good with the dividend? He asked. I thought, half understanding, doing the math in my head as quickly as I could. 1% of $1 million. Yeah, sure, Brad. Then I looked at him. 10,000? For me? He just laughed. I think you're going to be surprised at the future. That night I got home. I opened up my bank website. I didn't think about it much. I knew about what I made. And as long as gas and groceries and my Home Depot purchases went through, I figured everything was fine. Balance. $22,000. I shook my head. What? I refreshed the page. 22,000. I scrolled back, no sign of the dividend. Would that make it more than 30,000? I couldn't believe it. Cassie would be thrilled. Cassie? I hadn't heard from her in a week. Hadn't we had something? I had been so busy working both jobs that I was exhausted. I picked up my phone and texted her. Hey, something wrong? I got a text back a few minutes later. Hey Joe, nothing wrong. A minute later, gosh, has it been a week? Another minute. Joe, I'm so sorry. Then the phone rang. Cassie's name. I answered it. Joe, I can't believe we haven't talked in a week. I don't know how the time went by, she said. There was a delight in her voice, but also something else, like she was talking too fast. Well, maybe I'm at fault too. I've been working 10, 12-hour days. I almost told her about the dividend, but something felt off. I'm sorry too, I've been hanging out with Wes. Wes? Yes, she said excitedly. He's a bassist in a local band. They've been playing at clubs and venues around the area. I've been going every night. He's so good, all this seemed wrong. Wasn't this exactly what happened with Max? I said so, and there was a defensiveness in her voice. Joe, I didn't think you would be so insecure. I've just been hanging out with him in his band and covering his. Then there was a silence. I have to go. I went to bed, exhausted and concerned, but I didn't sleep well. I thought there was something between us. The next morning, after about 2 hours of sleep, I got a text from Cassie. I'm going over to talk to my friend Kaylee about this. I texted back, I'm working, probably until 8 p.m. I put my phone in my pocket and forgot about it. It was a long day. Work felt hard again. The normal frustration was sinking in, but also that loneliness that came from letting her in. As I was driving home, I realized something. Something hard, something disappointing, but deeply real. I would make her choose. She could be with me, or she could hang out with her creative types. I didn't have the energy to compete. I worked hard and I was apparently going to be more successful than I ever thought possible. I had just enough for her love, not to be this Max guy all over again. That night I got home, I got a text from her. I've been talking to Kaylee and she's saying that you're being insecure. I should be allowed to hang out with whoever I want. I hung my head, I sent a text back. I haven't seen you in a week. Life was so good until all this happened, but I don't have the energy to compete. I'm a simple man, but I'm not foolish enough to get jerked around by a woman going back to her old games. If she was going to steal my peace, I would let it go. A minute later, I got a text back. What? You're just quitting. I looked at it. I didn't know what to say. I'm not going to be another Max for you. An hour passed. I just sat there. I was so tired. Then I got a text from her. This isn't the same. I'm just hanging out. Then an hour later, isn't it? I'm just having fun. No harm. Another hour. Well, maybe I was hanging out with him too much. At midnight. Joe, can I come over there right now? I picked up and looked at the phone. Please, give me your address and I'll come over immediately. Almost as an impulse, I texted my little apartment's address. Maybe she'd be by in a half hour, maybe. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. It was a hard, desperate knock. I opened the door and there was Cassie. Tears were running down her cheeks. She was gasping in her tears. When she saw me, she threw her arms around me. I'm sorry, Joe, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to think, but her tears kept rolling. I didn't even think about what I was doing, Joe. I hadn't even thought about creative types since Max blocked me. But when things felt secure with you, it was like a switch turned on and I didn't even know it happened. She looked up at me. I blocked Wes. I even blocked Kaylee. I don't want to do to you what I did to Max. She buried her head in my shoulder. I brought her inside, and we talked. She made it clear that she had fallen into that same pattern, and she hated herself for it. She promised that she wouldn't chase any more artists or musicians. We fell asleep on the couch that night, me out of exhaustion, her out of grief and sorrow. When I woke up in the morning, my back was stiff from the couch, but she was up making coffee. We talked some more and she seemed so much more like the woman I had gotten to know. I watched her for weeks, but she remained true. I didn't tell her about the money for months. I didn't tell anyone. One day, a few months later, Brad called me. I think now is the right time to hire a full-time marketing and social media employee. You want to bring Cassie in? The next day, we went into the office and Brad made the offer. It was good money and she could work from home. Slowly, she started putting the pieces together. The company was worth a lot more than she had thought. And I was one of the owners. I wasn't worried. She had proven herself true. When we left, she turned to me and said, "We should celebrate. How about Olive Garden, my treat?"